So this is an interview for Mining Memories, a project funded by Limestone Journeys. The date is the 12th of April 2016. I'm Michael Crane.
And I'm Nicola Wood.
And I'm David Maric.
And whereabouts were you born, David?
I was born in Chesterfield in Scarsdale Hospital on the 12th of the 10th, 1952.
And is there anything that you don't really want to talk about today?
No, I'm fine with the mining industry or anything that you need to know.
Okay.
No problem.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so how did you get into the mining industry?
Well, I emigrated to Australia with my parents in 1968 because the pits at the time, because my father was a miner all his life, and there was nothing really happening around here, so they decided to go to Australia, or it could have been South Africa or Canada, but on the £10 assist, you sort of go where they tell you to. So we went out to Australia, and I'd only just left school. I didn't know really what I wanted to do, and I got a job in a hardware and engineering store, and I was there for quite a few years, but unfortunately I just couldn't get any advancement that I wanted to do to, get better in the industry that I was in. And so I decided to ask my father if he could get me a job in the coal mine that he was working in New South Wales in Australia. And I was fortunate that they gave me a job. And I started there on what used to be called the twilight shift. And I did that for 4.5 years, and that was at 7 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning. And the mine that me and my father worked at was what they used to call a drift mine, which is like the one that used to be at Arkwright Colliery. That's a drift mine. You don't go straight down, you go in at an angle. But where I worked was on the coast in Australia. It was into a mountain, and there was 2 pits in there. There was the big pit that used to be, it was actually 14 miles in, underground. You used to have to go in by diesel man car and diesel train to take the guys in, and then we used to go in by electric locomotive that takes us down into the pit, and diesel man cars, which you can't do in England because of risk of fire, but it's a different conditions in Australia, you see. So although they have gas, it's different conditions. So I used to work in a scene called the Balgownie scene with my father, and he worked on a coal face as a machine driver, the shearer driver, and I had to work my way up from being a conveyor button lad through the machinery till eventually I ended up being a machine driver myself.
Thank you. And how long were you in the mining industry for?
I was 4.5 years in Australia, roughly. I came back in 1979 with my wife, and then I got a job at Maric Colliery, and I was there up until 1989 when I had my accident.
And where did you work? I think you just referred to you worked at
Maric Colliery.
Yeah.
Maric Colliery, yeah, near Bolsover, yeah. Guy number 2.
And did you cover different jobs? What kind of tasks did you do?
Well, when you start at the pit, it doesn't really matter sort of like what age you are. Although I'd got experience from Australia, it doesn't count here. But if like my father was a experienced qualified faceman and on all machinery and things, when he went to Australia, the Australian coal industry recognised that a British coal miner is an experienced coal miner. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take a lot for them to pick up things, and then it's just back to normal again. But unfortunately here, although I had all my paperwork from Australia, they don't recognise it. Although I was face trained and machine trained, that they don't recognise it. So you have to go through the system, unfortunately, with the National Coal Board as it was then. And what they do, they start you off on a button, which is a conveyor belt, which is very boring, but
so you had to start again in the fence.
I had to start all over again, yeah. I mean, when I did my foundation training at Grassmore Training Centre, before they sent me in the pit, I mean, I wasn't being big-headed, but I was doing things I'd already knew all about, track laying, tattling, building chocks and things like that. coalface. I know all about that because I did that in Australia. But you have to do it. It's by law. So you build yourself up, and then I was, after that, they put me on what's called, I was a tattle lad. And what that is, it's you're taking supplies. The supplies come into the pit in tubs and trams, all the things that they will need in the coal mine, which is taken in on an endless rope, down from the surface, down the shaft, then it's taken in by train. They hook it up to the back of the train, or the front of the train, depending on where they're doing it. And that gets shunted into a lay-by, and then whatever, we go and fetch it, using rope and clips, and then we take it to all the different areas of the pit that we are told to take it to. There's different tattle lads for different places. And I was on that for 5 years.
Long time.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Because what happens is they only do so many people each year face trading, because obviously old guys retire, or they've had enough, they want to come off, so they have to replace, the crew. So you have to wait for your turn to come up, and we used to have to go into the training office and find out where we were on the list, because at the peak time of Markham Pit, there was upwards of 2,500 men working there, the whole pit. That's in surface and everything.
Yeah.
So, you've got to wait a long time before you do your face training. Well, same as, again, the things that was on the face I'd already done. It was just the reverse, where, like I say, in England, they do advanced coalface. When I worked in Australia, it was reverse coalface. We used to retreat backwards, but you're still cutting the same thing, And then I had the opportunity to do my face training. I jumped at the chance because it's more money, and it's busier, it's more exciting. You don't get bored, and the shift is soon over. You get a lot more mucky, I'm afraid. You come out very black. You have to have somebody to wash you back in the shower because you can't wash it yourself.
That's the camaraderie, isn't it?
Well, some people get quite embarrassed about that, because obviously, the guys, we all muckers, we all mates and that, and if you're going to get embarrassed about having somebody wash your back and your bum, then you don't work in the pit.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I ended up, I did my face training, and I ended up on the coalface. Unfortunately, I had an accident in 1989. So.
And what did your normal working day look like? Kind of hours, what shift patterns did you do?
I used to do 3 shifts. You used to do 3 shifts, nights, afters and days in that rotation. So, it's supposed to be about 7.25 hour shift. But obviously, by the time you get to work on days, you've got to be down the pit for 6 o'clock. And we used to have a meeting place. All the guys that worked down number 2 used to be at a meeting place, and they would give you your jobs then. But when you were a face worker, you went straight to the face. But all the ancillary workers, they might be short a guy on a button, or short a guy on a tattle, or something. So obviously there'd be a big blackboard down underground at the meeting place, and what they'd do, either the under manager or the head deputy, would say where you're going that shift, and then you get off and do the job. So you could be anywhere, but once you've got a set job, like tattle lad or a coalface worker or anything like that, then you automatically just get on the train and went and did your job. So it was the same sort of hours, but just on a different shift pattern.
Thank you. And did you enjoy your work? Is there any particularly good or bad experiences that you might have had? I know you've...
Well, apart from having an accident. No, I enjoyed it. I mean, a lot of people on the surface always take the miners as not doing a lot, because we don't seem to be down there for long. But by the time you take in consideration how long it takes you to get there to the job, and then obviously when you're on a coalface, you work the whole time. You don't stop. And like I say, we sometimes used to eat half as snap, as we used to call it, on the way in, and the other half on the way out. And then we used to take some water, sometimes a gallon plastic container on the face, to have a drink of water, you know. And I mean, a lot of the guys, they used to take chewing tobacco, you know, that smoked heavy, and, you know, they'd take chewing tobacco, or they'd take gum or anything like that. And a lot of the guys used to take snuff. I used to take snuff. You know, I used to be a smoker, so it was a bit of a nicotine rush while he was on it, because obviously you couldn't take any tobacco. It's contraband, and it's illegal, you know.
Of course, yeah.
You know. But I enjoyed the job. No, I really, really did enjoy the job, and of course the money was good. You know, so, yeah.
And were you a member of any of the unions?
Well, we were a member. You got to be a member of a union. You could not be. I was the National Union of Mine Workers, and obviously I was a striker during the 84-85 strike. So you got to be in a union. You could not be in a union.
And what did it offer you by being in the union?
Well, obviously, I mean, the National Union of Mine Workers was very good when it came to wage rises or anything like that, or safety, or whatever. And obviously, when I had my accident down the mine, they were very good to me, very, very good, looking after me all the while, and obviously got me compensation, and hopefully, from what I gather, the things improved where I had my accident, because unfortunately the coal board, the British Coal at the time, they admitted liability. It was their fault.
Do you want to say a little bit about your accident?
It was on the 2nd of March 1989. I was actually on afternoons that day, and we got to the pit as normal. We used to go on the bus to the mines. It was cheap because we used to pay we used to subsidise it out of our wages, and obviously the pit did the rest. And anyway, I went down, and we got down to the face, got started. The main gate shearing machine came down and started cutting, and it went into the gate end, cut out all what it needed to do, went back out again. And my job, I used to work in the main gate pack hall. This is where we used to advance the chocks and the bars and the props. We used to fill the space where the machine had just been and cut all the coal out. We have to support the roof. And my job was to get over the conveyor system into the virgin land that had just been cut out, so there's no support. And my job was to take a bar over and a doughty prop and set the bar. Now, obviously, you're on your own at that side, and it's usually quite safe. You just got to be a bit aware, and usually there's either the machine driver or a chop man keeping an eye on you, making sure everything's all right. But obviously things can happen, and as it did, I'd set the prop, and I was just about to get back out again and climb over the armoured conveyor, and the coal face gave way, and from what I gathered, it was about a 25-yard piece of solid coal, about 4 or 5 foot high, and it just fell over, and it trapped me against what we class as the face side conveyor. And what it did, I dislocated my left hip, I fractured my pelvis, I broke my lower back, I broke all my ribs on my right hand side, lacerated my face, and broke teeth, and I was trapped. I was trapped by my ankle. The coal had trapped my ankle. It was trapped.
How long were you trapped down there? Can you remember?
I'm not so much, because I was starting to get quite a bit of pain, and what happens is then the deputy has got morphine on him,
Right.
and what he does, he just stabs you with some morphine, and obviously they on some of the faces they used to have Entonox. I don't know whether you've heard of Entonox. It's what they have in ambulances and that for pain relief. Not everyone, but some of them used to have. I don't know. I will probably trap for about half an hour, I suppose, because the guys had to try and get this great lump off me and then free my ankle, which they managed to do. And then what they did, they hoisted me up onto the top of the AFC, which is the armoured face conveyor, on a stretcher, and the only way to get me out was take me under what they call the ripping lip. So virtually there's not much room between, and I'm facing the roof at the time. But they got me out anyway. They had to carry me out down the gate before they get me on the train to take me out of the pit. So I'd probably say in total it probably took them about an hour and a half, hour and 3/4 to get me out of the pit. And then obviously I was rushed to hospital and operated on. I was 6.5 weeks in traction.
I was going to say, how long did it take?
6.5 weeks in traction. Yeah.
And did you retire from mining?
Well, obviously I was off for quite a while, well over a year. I wanted to see if I could go back underground again, because I didn't think I'd be getting my job back at the pit, because they said I'd got to be careful with my hip until it had sort of knitted back in and all the nerves and what have you had gone back. But they said to start crawling about under a face would be no good. I could dislocate it quite easily. So there was no chance of going back down pit again, but I wanted to see if I could get a surface job, you know, in the washeries or the bathhouse or something, because a lot of injured miners, they can't go underground again. Sometimes they used to try and help them get a job.
And did the union help you with that?
Well, they tried to, but because at the time when I had that accident, this is when they were starting to close the pits. And, you know, they were looking for redundancies and what have you, and so they're very reluctant to hire somebody or continue hiring somebody that's not fit enough. So they gave me an option. I either took redundancy or went out on medically unfit. So I took redundancy because it was the better of two evils. And then obviously through the union I sued them. I sued them for me injuries, which took quite a while to get, but I did get it eventually. So that was it. That was my career down the pit finished, unfortunately.
What were your working relationships with your colleagues like?
Well, it's like anything when you get a bunch of lads together. You know, I mean, to be fair, I mean, when you're working in a crew on a coalface, you've really got to get on with each other, because you working down a pit, you're looking after your mate, and your mate's looking after you, and so forth. You can't be your own boss and think, I'm looking after number one. It doesn't work like that, because that's when things can happen. I know I had an accident, but that was just, it was an accident. It wasn't a forced error. You don't purposely put people in danger, you know, so you've got to be very, very careful down there. Yeah, we had a good time. We used to go out and socialise, the lads at Christmas time and what have you. And I say, when we went for the mile down the pit, which took us 12 hours, we did a mile, 1.4 miles, which is good. You've really got to be cohesive to do a job like that. You've got to work together. Everybody had arguments. We've had arguments. There's been a bit of few scuffles in the changing rooms and that have you. But that happens anywhere. That does. But generally, coal miners, they look after each other.
Close, aren't they?
Very, very close. Yeah. Very close.
So when you had your time off, what did you do in your time off?
Bored. So I was 6.5 weeks in hospital, and then obviously when they eventually let me go, then I was another 5 weeks on crutches, and I had to wear a handmade girdle with bone. Well, it used to be whale bone, but they make them out of this sort of metal now, and it's moulded to my back, because I broke my back, and I got to be very careful of damaging that even further. So I struggled for quite a while. I was really, really bored as well, but you just have to get on with it. And unfortunately, because of my injuries that took such a long time to heal, I was limited to what I was going to do. Anyway, when they actually finished me at pit, I didn't know what to do, because obviously I am a hands-on, I'm a labourer by trade. I'm not an office worker and things like that. I'm not into anything like that. I'd rather be outside or, you know, doing something with my hands.
Yeah.
So I struggled a bit, and I was trying to work out what I could do. And obviously the social services and you know, the job centre and unemployment and all the things I had to go through examinations for me disability pensions and what have you. They wanted to see what I was capable of doing. And the only few things that they thought I could do was either IT or bench work. So, that could be making things.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Like the old Remploy used to be, and I just didn't want that. It just didn't appeal to me. Anyway, I tried IT.
Okay.
So I did information technology, and also, while I was there, I decided to do business admin. I thought I might as well give it a bash. And I was bored out. I was
Obviously not.
totally bored. I mean, didn't have to wear suits and that, but you had to be, a little bit.
And it's so very different, isn't it?
Well, it is when you've been a labourer all your life. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the people I worked with, I got on with them and that, but it was just so boring. And the early monitors for information technology screens, there was then you had to have a filter because it used to be flickering all the time, and and it was all dot this and spreadsheets, and it was so. But I mean, unfortunately, during that year I started that, I lost my father, and it sort of, I just really didn't want it, so I packed it in. I just packed it in, and that's it. So I really, since then, I've not really done anything. I've tried to get back into. A few of my friends are builders, and when I got a bit bored, I asked, can I come and do a bit with you? So obviously I went with a joiner, and I went with a joiner's mate. I went down London for a short while, and just little jobs, steady little jobs, and nothing that would do me any damage. Yeah. So I did that for a year or two, off and on. It wasn't permanent; it was off and on. And then I got my compensation, and I'm on a disability pension now as it is. So I manage. I'm all right, but I'm just limited. I can't do a full time labouring job, 'cause I can't do it no more. And to be stood about all day doesn't do me any good. To be sat down all day doesn't do me back any good. And now, unfortunately, because of me injuries, I had to have a new left hip August of last year. Because of that, it got worse and worse and worse, and so they had to replace it.
So it's had a real long-term effect.
Well, it has as well, and I'm unfortunately in 2007 I had a massive heart attack, and I've had a double bypass as well. So I'm walking wounded. My email address is $1 Million Dave.
Bless you. Switching slightly, can you remember the dates of the miners' strike?
Yeah, March 1984 to March 1985.
And do you have any experience of the miners' strikes? How did it actually affect you in any way?
Well, it affected us all, to be quite honest with you. I mean, there are the guys that had a few quid, or there were the guys that didn't. I mean, 84, I came back from Australia with a few bob in my pocket, because as my ex-wife is now, unfortunately, we worked hard, and we didn't have any children out there, not till we got back here. And I made a few quid, because the money was very good in Australia, down the coal mines. But unfortunately, because the strike came on, that money was keeping us going. Yeah. Because obviously we didn't get us concessionary fuel, so we got nothing to burn. We was fortunate that the union sorted out, because we used to have what they call food banks now. There was like that during the strike, but the miners' wives sorted all that out. We was getting food from the miners in Poland and Romania, and all these other miners were looking after us.
So the mining community really.
The mining community of Europe looked after us, and I think some even from America and Australia they were sending stuff. So we could go and get a food pack if we wanted. I mean, we weren't starving. Don't get me wrong. And my son, he was born in 81. so he wasn't very old.
No,
And
of course,
I was struggling a little bit, obviously, because them days, as though we don't get it now, we used to have good winters them days. They were harsh winters, and you know, you had to get fuel where you could get it from. And you know, I do admit I have gone to places and got fuel that I shouldn't have done, but I'm not going to go into that too much.
Oh, but. So post mining, how do you feel? How did you feel when you left the mining industry? Obviously, you left.
Very disappointed. Yeah, I was disappointed.
So how that left you feeling?
I was disappointed because obviously, you know, people have accidents. My father had an accident down the pit. I don't know whether it run in the family, but my father had to leave the pit because he was a coalface. He was a machine driver, a shearer driver, and a piece of rock, a huge piece of rock, came down between the chocks as he was operating the machine, and it hit him on the head, and he ended up having a massive heart attack and cracked his skull. And
Oh gosh.
it did me dad then. My father was never the same man after, you know, and obviously I lost him when this was in Australia. This happened,
Okay. Yeah.
not here. And obviously they came back in '81 when my son was born, but he left the pit by then because of this accident. And obviously my dad was retired, and I know what my dad went through because my dad used to work 7 days a week if he could. Very, very. I would never come up to my dad's bootlaces as far as being a hard worker like him. And I know how it cut him to the quick when he had to finish. He tried to go back, but it just wouldn't. He couldn't get back into it. So that was it for my dad, and I was disappointed because it was a good job. But I mean, as time went on, as everybody knows, about '94, Markham had done. So where was we going to go anyway? You know, I mean, quite a few of my friends that live in this village that I went to pit with, and we used to catch the same bus. They stopped on to the last minute. They used to be doing that because what they had to do, they had to strip the mine of the things that they could take out and get rid of. Obviously, millions of pounds worth of stuff still down there. But they stopped on till the very end, until they actually poured the concrete and capped it.
Blimey.
So a lot of people were disappointed. A lot of guys are still disappointed today. You know, at my age now, they're still disappointed that the pit's shut.
I was going to say, my final question would be, do you keep in touch with your colleagues?
Some of them.
Nowadays?
I mean, I do. Every now and again, if I go to town, somebody will shout me, you know, because I lived in Australia, they used to call me Aussie, obviously, and Aussie Dave. So you hear this shouted, and you know it's got to be somebody from Pit. You know, and the rotten thing about it is, although they know me, I struggle to find out, and it's embarrassing. I'm going, I know you, but I can't think of your name. But you don't say that. All right, pal, how you going on? You know, and then you know you might see another friend in Grassmore like where now, and I say, did you know? Yeah, and he'll tell me his name, and I go, that was him. Yeah, you know, but you don't see that many as often as I used to do. I mean, the one or two of the guys that I knock about with now that I've known for 30 odd years, I still know today. You know, ex-miners and that. But unfortunately, a lot of them have passed.
Right.
You know, they were a lot older than
Did they go on to get other work? Did they?
Some did. It was strange because there's a couple of places. There's one that's called. Can I mention a name of a company? Or?
Yeah.
It was called TMAT, and it's at Homewood. And what they do, they make you know the matting and the rubber mats and that. They go in trucks
Okay, yeah.
inside, you know, on the floor and all that. That's what it's called, TMAT. They make all that, and it was surprising. A good 90% of the guys that worked there were all ex-miners.
Yeah,
You know, they'd find out there was a job going, and they'd pass it on. Keep together, you see. And then there's another place, and it's called Chesterfield, and that's at Sheepbridge. And in fact, my best mate works there, ex-miner, and a good 50 or 60% of the guys, they're all miners. They seem to.
Yeah.
All run to the same, you know, like as though they were still down pit. They work together again. You know, they like this camaraderie, like bit and myself. It doesn't always happen, but I have learnt over the years that quite a few places they hire actually ex-miners because they know they're hard workers.
Yeah.
They're good timekeepers, hard workers, will do the job.
Hard worker, didn't you,
Yeah, so it's strange that, but obviously not everybody did that, but you know, from my experience and what I've gathered, that a lot of people are like that, you know.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Well, as far as the pit's concerned, well, I'll say I was very disappointed that they're all shut. I mean, when you read about the energy prices and everything today, and we seem to be super reliant now, unfortunately, on Russia and some of the other European countries to get our energy. You know, I mean, I can go back to the 60s and when we were supposed to be self-sufficient on our own with the oil and North Sea oil and all that. All that's virtually gone now, and you know, obviously, coal is a dirty fuel, fossil fuel, but you know, the modern technology they've got now, they can filter it all the stuff out and filter it all out. And you know, the point. What was a strange thing that I found when I worked in Australia, because the mine I worked in Australia, it was called coking coal, and it was actually used years and years ago for ships stoking, and the coal we used to produce was brown. It wasn't black. It was like a brown. It was a very high content. They call them gigajoules, and it's the ash content. So what you have to do, the better it burns, the more value you're getting out of it. You don't want no waste, or as little waste as possible. You know, I mean, a lot of coal you can buy, you can get now. It's got a lot of muck in it. And, you know, it leaves a lot of slag and ash and that. I mean, so you're not burning it efficiently. Okay. And we used to sell our coal to England from Australia. Now, how do you work that one out? It's got to go 12 to 15,000 miles by sea to get to England, because it was that good coal to burn in furnaces and boilers and what have you. You know, probably make steel making. But the point was, it got cheaper everywhere else, and British Coal and National Coal couldn't produce it at the same price or a better price. So that's, other than Maggie Thatcher, I'm afraid, which I could go on about here, but I won't.
And I'd just like to say thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing your time with us and giving us an insight into your life, working down the mines and being a pitman.
Yes, no problem. Thank you for coming and asking me.